So in Birmingham over the past couple of weeks, hundreds of St. George's crosses and Union flags have appeared across many areas like Woley Castle, Northfield, Bartley Green. Residents describe it as a patriotic outpouring. There's been flags tied to lampposts, draped from buildings and shared widely on local social media, Facebook groups. Many others have joined in, donating to a fundraiser to buy more and calling for their own streets to be decorated. Supporters say the flags have lifted community spirits and it's kind of a way of showing some pride in the country. But the sudden burst of English and British flags has divided opinion. Some residents claim it's harmless and unifying, but others accuse those behind it of political motives, suggesting it's intended to create division between white British residents and other communities. A few have already linked it also to anti-migrant protests seen elsewhere. So Birmingham City Council has stepped in, saying the flags will be removed if they're attached to street furniture without permission. They've cited health and safety, warning that unauthorized attachment to lampposts, for example, could fall, could block visibility, cause electrical hazards, or weaken the structures. The removal threat has angered the same supporters who point out that other national and political flags, notably Palestinian flags in East Birmingham, have been allowed to fly freely without that same urgency. And critics see this as yet another example of double standards. And yes, you really have to marvel at the double standards on display here, because they are not even hidden anymore. In fact, they are so blatant that you almost get the impression that they want you to notice, as if it's part of the whole point. When an English flag goes up, cue the panic. It's exclusive, it's provocative, it's even dangerous. A bit of cloth on a pole, apparently hazards to life and limb. It could fall, it could obscure visibility, interfering with electrics. And so for your safety, of course, the council must leap into action, tear it down and restore order to the streets of Birmingham. The very same streets, mind you, that they cannot keep clean or keep safe. But a St. George's cross flag, oh, that's a priority that they have to deal with immediately. Now compare that to the treatment of foreign flags. Palestinian flags have been hanging across parts of East Birmingham for months and months on end, without that same level of urgency and, oh, we need to sort it out quickly. I visit Birmingham often, and whenever I pass the same areas, the flags are untouched. Political symbols from overseas, conflicts that have absolutely nothing to do with the governance of Birmingham or the welfare of its residents. You know, these are expressions of identity that must be respected. In that context, flags are culturally important, sacred, needed for representation. Entire streets can be decorated in them, and it's framed as a beautiful example of multicultural Britain at work. So what we have here, folks, is a clear hierarchy. Symbols of other nations and causes, great. Symbols of England are treated with suspicion. And you're supposed to internalize it, that your national identity is inherently threatening and everyone else's is inherently good. That loving your country is a danger to community cohesion, while loving another country is a contribution to it. This isn't equality or fairness. It's actually a deliberate inversion of values where the only culture that must continually justify its own existence is your own. And some people from the same area are uncomfortable with the flags, apparently. One resident, for example, said she acknowledged the pride many felt in the flag, but that for others, especially minorities like herself, it's become harder to separate that pride from the undertone of nationalism. And to that I say, who really cares? Who cares? Honestly, who cares? This is England. The English flag is supposed to be on display here, and if the sight of it makes you feel uneasy, then that is a you problem. We really have to start being blunt and unapologetic here. And by the way, this bankrupt council has money also to light up the library to mark Pakistan Independence Day. Why are we doing this? Seriously, why is a bankrupt local authority spending money lighting up an enormous public building in the colours of a foreign nation to celebrate an event that has absolutely nothing to do with Britain in 2025? What exactly is the end goal here? And with respect, if you're a Pakistani person that wants to celebrate your own country's independence, fine, do it in your own home. Why should we have to see that? I really don't care about your independence, as you won't care about Nigerian Independence Day, right? Can you see why this is more about flags and lampposts This pattern runs through every layer of public life in places like Birmingham. There is an institutional instinct to view English identity through a lens of guilt and danger. But that instinct doesn't apply to anyone else. If someone from another background asserts their identity, the reflex is to accommodate it. But if you assert yours, the reflex is to pathologize it, to say, well, what's the motive here? Who might this upset? And here's the thing, this ties directly into this wider obsession with diversity. When is this mantra going to die? Honestly, how many more examples do we need before our so-called leaders admit that diversity is automatically not a strength, especially when it is forced, superficial, or prioritized over everything else? Just look at Birmingham. This city comes up time and time again in national crime statistics as one of the most dangerous cities in the country, in Europe in fact. We're talking about some of the highest rates of violence, gang activity, knife crime, antisocial behaviour. And yet, ironically, it is also one of the most diverse cities in Britain. If diversity were inherently and universally a good thing, then Birmingham ought to be a paradise of unity and cooperation and peace. But it's not. It's a city filled with huge problems. And it's not alone. Most of our most diverse cities are plagued with serious crime, social fragmentation, loss of civic trust. We're told endlessly that diversity enriches communities, that it brings different perspectives and makes us stronger. Well, when you look at the lived reality of Birmingham or Manchester or London, what you actually see is fractured neighbourhoods, parallel societies that barely interact, growing hostility between groups. You see entire areas where the culture and identity of the majority population has been erased. And you see councils bending over backwards to accommodate foreign expressions of identity while treating their own national symbols as a public order issue. There is such a deep hostility towards this nation itself and those who feel loyalty to it. It's not even a passive neglect anymore. It's active opposition from our political leaders. They'll spend years and millions on inclusion strategies for every group except the people who built this country, who are from this country and of this country. They'll speak in glowing terms about protecting communities, but the community that they're talking about never seems to include the English as a people. They need you demoralized. They need you to believe that your flag is a problem, that your identity is dangerous, something to be managed and contained. And then people act surprised when more and more voices start talking about the possibility of civil unrest or even internal conflict. But what do they expect? If people can't even put up a simple flag to say we matter too without being treated like a threat, if even the smallest, most harmless acts of cultural resistance are stamped out, do they really think that this frustration will just disappear? No, it builds. And the longer they try to suppress these symbols, the greater and more explosive the eventual pushback will be. They always do this, don't they? Our so-called political class. They flip reality on its head so that the thing which is actually a reaction to a problem suddenly becomes the problem. So with this flag issue, they're pushing the line that these flags are causing the division. Oh, right, because before someone tied a St. George's Cross flag to a lamppost, Birmingham was just a beacon of peace. Why are they so painfully out of touch? People aren't stepping out of their front doors each morning thinking, how can I stir up division? They're actually stepping out thinking, what has happened to my city? Why does no one seem to care? These flags were meant to be acts of morale boosting, small signals of pride and some kind of solidarity in a place that has been run down physically, culturally, spiritually. But instead of dealing with the conditions that make people feel like they have to reclaim their identity just to be seen, the political class says, yes, here's a problem, and then points to the flags. It's the same logic they always use. Protests are the problem, not the injustice that triggered them. Political unrest is the problem, not the policies that created it, not the fact that people feel alienated in their own country. We've reached a stage where the people making decisions in our institutions don't see themselves as custodians of a shared heritage. What this all boils down to is that the people who run this country genuinely don't think it belongs to you anymore. This row over flags in Birmingham matters. And please, let's not pretend that this is about health and safety. If that were true, then they could easily put up the flags themselves, safely and securely, and in doing so, actually demonstrate some pride in this damn country, that they're supposed to represent. But they won't, because it's not about preventing accident, it's about preventing you from being visible in your own homeland.